Hello, my name is Mervyn D'Souza. I'm a mindfulness coach working in London in the United Kingdom. This short video is to share with you the reasons why I became a mindfulness coach and how in particular the ACT-based mindfulness coaching program has been of benefit to me in my own struggles with anxiety and panic attacks. I started my meditation journey when I was 18 at university. This was over 32 years ago now. And my initial interest in meditation was mainly to do with seeing whether there was a way to get to something called enlightenment. I also quite noticed that by practicing meditation, it also helped me to become more relaxed and less stressed. So I continued with meditation until I was 35, and during those 17 years or so, I did actually find meditation was quite useful to me, just with coping with general stress levels. When I was 35, I actually had two different part-time jobs working at two different colleges in the east and west of London. And I also was teaching meditation in the evening, and I'd also started up in a new relationship. And it was also around the time when there was also advertising on the TV about HIV and AIDS, and I was getting a bit sort of worried about being in a new relationship and the possible consequences of HIV and things like that. And I started worrying not only about the relationship, but also just general things with working in two different jobs and teaching in the evenings as well. It all seemed like it was getting all quite stressful, but I thought, yeah, I can cope with this. I'm used to meditating, and meditation has helped me in the past, and I could cope with the anxieties and worries I was getting at that time. But what I started to notice in this particular period of my life was that the more I tried to control and change and sort of dissolve the anxiety and worry feelings, the more and more anxious I was becoming, which was a bit surprising because in the past, when my anxiety levels were quite low, meditation did seem to help quite a lot. But now I was noticing that the more I was meditating, the more and more anxious I was becoming. Very soon, just the high levels of anxiety started to turn into panic attacks. And I would get up in the morning and I would notice my bed sheets were just completely soaked in sweat, and sometimes I would have to just run out of the house and into the garden because I just felt terrified for no good reason, to be honest. And I would just sort of chill out in the garden and feel a bit calm, and then go to teach at my college jobs. And then sometimes I would be in the classroom and I would be teaching and some worrying thought would come into my head, and suddenly I would get this massive panic attack, and sometimes I would have to leave the classroom and go in the car park and just do some deep breathing exercises to calm down. And then I could get back into teaching again. Luckily, these classes were with adults, so it wasn't too much of an issue. But it's like, what I started sort of discovering was that the panic attacks were getting stronger and stronger, and I was getting sometimes between 10 and 20 panic attacks in a day. And I could just feel like when they were coming, that's like my heart was pounding, I was sweating, and just feeling this intense terror as though like impending doom, but nothing really specifically that I could point my finger off that was actually that threatening. It just seemed like any slight worrying thought would just trigger this massive kind of terror within me. And I would just battle away inside. I would just be like very tight inside and try and stop it by forcing myself to try and stop it. Maybe do lots of deep breathing or something. All with the intention of trying to control and stop the panic attacks, but it just wasn't really effective. It wasn't really doing very much, really. I might have had small periods of relief, but on the whole, the panic attacks were getting stronger and stronger. After a while, I decided like I had to give up my job because I just felt I just couldn't cope. This was going for about 6 months into the panic attacks. So I just thought, well, my contracts came to be renewed in July term. I decided I didn't want to carry on. I thought if I take the summer off and maybe a bit longer, I might be able to get on top of this by doing more meditation and things like that. But it just didn't work. Sort of the panic attacks just got worse, and I then started to try to do lots of alternative medicines like acupuncture and herbalism, and tried rescue remedy, and tried bark flower remedies, and just lots of different alternative things, which may have given us small help, but nothing really significant. And I also tried a little bit of psychotherapy, and even that, I didn't really feel like that was really anywhere close to um, sort of helping me to understand what was causing the panic attacks and how I could better handle them. It was it was around about after about 6 months of having panic attacks, I was getting to the point where I just felt like, what's the point? I mean, I couldn't. I just felt I just it wouldn't. I just felt I just couldn't cope with these feelings anymore, and I was just thinking, what's the point of carrying on living? And I don't know. So I think the only thing that got me through that phase was just thinking about my family, really, and how they would feel if I did anything silly. So I just battled on and just carried on trying to hope that if I did enough meditation or I waited long enough, then these panicky feelings and these worrying feelings would eventually stop. And by some lucky chance, I went to see my mother who was living on the south coast, and when I was there, I think it was maybe the second day in the trip or something, I was listening to a tape she had in her tape library. It was by, I think it's a Dominican monk called Father Anthony de Mello. Now, I'm not particularly a religious person myself, but I did find this tape very, very insightful. And it wasn't nothing to do with panic attacks or anxiety, but it was just like a general personal kind of development tape about sort of, the psychology of life kind of thing. But on this tape, one sentence, if you like, really stuck out among all the other things Anthony de Mello was saying. And this one phrase was, "What you resist persists. What you resist persists." And that phrase really jumped out of the tape and sort of, it was like a revelation to me. I just thought, this was could be an answer for me, because at that point I've been struggling so much to try and stop the feelings and change them and control them, that I never even thought there was this notion of just leaving it alone and just not resisting the feelings could be a better way of handling these feelings. But as I said, this tape wasn't really talking about panic attacks at all, so I just thought, well, I'll give it a try. I've tried many other approaches and they weren't working, and trying to control it wasn't really working, so maybe if I just leave it alone and see what happens. That very evening, I was on the train back home, and I had a panic attack on the train. And I just resolved, as soon as it happened, that was it. I was not going to try to do any kind of special meditation, breathing exercise, because by then I was doing kind of like inner smile meditations, visualization exercises, many different types of like non-mindfulness based meditations, which, like I said, were helpful in a certain context of stress, but in this particular kind of stress situation, they weren't very helpful at all. So I was sitting on the train and I had this panic attack on the train, and I just closed my eyes and I just sort of did nothing. I just sort of allowed the panic attack to just happen and just allowed it to rise and just do its stuff, really. I still had a panic attack, but the strange thing is I sort of felt that it was significantly different. Because I'd stopped struggling with it and I'd stopped fighting it, it just didn't have the same kind of impact to me. And I sort of thought, there's something in this approach, and then I just carried on day by day, week by week, month by month, just purely practicing this particular approach. I just not doing anything when a panic attack occurred. I just allowed it to happen, made the space for it. There was plenty of times when I just fell into bad habits and I would struggle, but I just kept reminding myself, don't struggle, let it happen, give it space. And I just kept doing this again and again and again. And over about a period of 6 months, I started noticing that I was getting less and less intense panic attacks, less and less frequent, less numbers. And after about 6 months, I could actually get back to teaching again. And I didn't have that many panic attacks after that. I did have a few, but they were very rare, maybe like once or twice in a year kind of thing. And this really got me thinking, because I started thinking, well, how come no one had really told me that there was this other approach to handling panic attacks? And the more I read and researched, because I've got like a science background, I'm qualified as a biology teacher, and I just was really curious as to like what causes panic attacks and how come this non-struggling approach was so beneficial, yet I couldn't find it in many of the different therapies that I looked into. even some of the more conventional therapies. But I kept looking, and I did actually find after about 4 years, I think it must have been about when I was 40 or something, I heard about a doctor in Australia called Dr. Claire Weekes, and she did actually was the first person I heard who, she wrote books like Peace from Nervous Suffering, and various other videos she's created. And she was the first person who talked about this kind of acceptance approach of not struggling with panic feelings or anxiety feelings and just allowing them to be there. But she didn't actually, to be interesting, she didn't actually say how to do it, how to actually go about not struggling, not fighting, just giving them space. It was about 2009 I first heard about the ACT-based therapeutic approach. ACT stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. Now, this was the first approach I actually found out about, which was, it's said to be part of the third wave of cognitive behavioural therapies, but it's based more on a mindfulness approach to handling painful thoughts and feelings rather than trying to challenge them and control them. But the more I read about ACT, the more it fitted in with the experiences I had, like many years ago when I was 35. And they were always talking, in the ACT books and in the ACT videos and in the ACT courses I went to, they were all talking about the struggle as being the problem, the struggle as being the thing that amplifies and makes your inner demons, if you like, bigger and bigger and bigger, whether they are emotional demons or psychological demons. The more we struggle with them, the bigger and bigger they become. And in the ACT model, they were proposing that they are like distinct set of skills, which they called acceptance skills, mindfulness skills, diffusion skills, which when you put these skills together and you learn how to do them, they can help tremendously in making it easier just to loosen the impact that strong panicky feelings or nervous anxiety has on our life. The first book I read was Stephen Hayes' book, Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Life. And I thought I'd struck gold because it just gave me a blueprint of understanding why I'd got myself into such a mess with my panic attacks, and there's specific exercises that we could do, that we could learn, that would help us to learn how to stop struggling, make space for uncomfortable feelings, deal with worrying thoughts more effectively without getting into a big fight with them. Because when I was having my panic attacks, I wasn't struggling so much with the feelings when I heard that phrase, what you resist persists, but I was struggling still with my thoughts, because thoughts seem to have like some incredible reality when you're having a panic attack. The most slightest worrying thought, which you normally wouldn't think too much of in a normal situation, in a panic attack situation, it just seems incredibly real. And there were specific skills in these ACT books about how to handle these strong thoughts, which are based on what they call diffusion skills, which were a complete revelation to me. And I sort of then decided to did a mindfulness training course, did some training with some of the ACT trainers, became qualified as a coach, and started to actually go out there and share these skills with other people who are suffering from anxiety and panic attacks. And I was actually seeing that it was actually very helpful to them as well. So not only I knew about it in theory, I was actually seeing practical results with people I sort of coached and helped with this approach. Now I do need to make it clear, in ACT we're not promising that these mindfulness skills, these diffusion skills, these acceptance training skills are going to by some miracle get rid of all your anxiety and all your worries and anxieties and panic attacks. It's not really what ACT is about, because it's the fundamental, so if you like, tenet of ACT is that it's trying to get rid of these uncomfortable feelings actually makes them worse. So we're not going to be trying to share with you skills with the intention of getting rid of uncomfortable feelings. What we're trying to do is say that by creating a kind of mindful, expansive space, you can learn to be with very uncomfortable feelings in a way that they have much less impact and influence on you. And true, some people do end up not having as many panic attacks or high anxiety attacks in their life, but not everyone. Some people just do, in a certain context, they will still feel panicky and anxious. But by learning these skills, it just makes it a bit easier to handle these panicky feelings. And it helps, if these particular situations are important to you in your life, it helps you to just carry on your life in that direction and just handle these feelings in a more effective way. So, if you have tried many different ways to try to control your anxiety, to try and control your panic attacks, to try and control your worrying thoughts, and you've noticed that it just isn't working, that over time your anxiety is getting worse, your panic attacks are getting worse, your worries are getting bigger and bigger, then it's a possibility that it may be the actual strong intention to try to control these things that may be causing these inner cognitions to get stronger and stronger. And maybe it's time just to look at a completely fresh new approach to handling these uncomfortable feelings and thoughts. If this is what you're feeling right now, and you would like to discover this fresh new approach to handling stressful thoughts and feelings, then I would encourage you very strongly to start to read some of the ACT books. They are listed on my website. Or you could, if you wish to take it further, you're welcome to join my 8-week mindfulness training program, where I will share with you all the skills I've learned myself in dealing with panic attacks, which are very ACT based, but I'll also bring in a lot of the things I've learned through going to the ACT courses and being with the ACT teachers, and because what they've discovered is ways of actually helping people to learn how to let go inside and how to stop struggling. It's very easy to use these words, but how do you actually do it? And in ACT there are very, very clearly defined steps which you can learn at home in your own time and apply them in your own time and see over time how they can help to just help to deal with stress in a different way. So I hope this video has been of interest to you. I hope you may learn something from what I've gone through, and I hope that you may not have to go through the same kind of trauma I went through. And if you're interested in following it up, I will be pleased to hear about it. Thank you for listening.